How many governments have fallen, not because they fired a weapon, but because someone claimed they might? Is the fear of weapons more dangerous than the weapons themselves? And when the world's most powerful states cry threat, are they warning us of danger to peace or danger to their dominance? On June 17, 2025, US President Donald Trump tweeted, "We know where he is," referring directly to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. The context? The Iran-Israel war. The US and Israeli administrations are more determined than ever to remove the theocratic government in Tehran. But what's the reason? Or perhaps, what's the excuse? The answer: Iran's nuclear program. Iran's nuclear ambitions began as early as the 1950s, initiated under the Western-backed Shah. Even though he was a pro-Western leader, the Shah still faced skepticism and criticism from his allies, particularly regarding the potential for weaponization. These suspicions intensified after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when anti-American and anti-Israeli rhetoric became part of the new government's identity. That shift gave Israel and its allies a clear opening to sound the alarm. Israel and the United States have long used the narrative of an Iranian nuclear threat as a strategic pretext, justifying sanctions, diplomatic isolation, covert sabotage, and even the possibility of direct military strikes. While Iran has always maintained that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, both Israel and the US argue that it's a cover for the development of nuclear weapons. Even though US intelligence acknowledged that Iran halted its weapons program in 2003, Israeli leaders, especially Benjamin Netanyahu, have insisted that Iran is secretly pushing forward. Over the past 2 years, Iran's theocratic government has suffered the loss of several senior officials, including top military commanders, some just in the last few days. These developments have weakened Iran's supreme leader's grip on power and intensified pressure from within. Now, with growing internal opposition and external strikes, US and Israeli officials are openly discussing the possibility of regime change. And the question must be asked: would this be the first time a regime has been overthrown merely for developing weapons or strengthening its means of self-defense? Is the Iran's supreme leader's regime in danger? Will he be overthrown or will he be lucky? In modern history, military interventions and regime overthrows have often revolved around a single, repeated justification: weapons. Whether it's the alleged possession of weapons of mass destruction, illegal arms trafficking, chemical attacks, or even the suspicion of military capability, the weapons narrative has been used as a moral and strategic shield by powerful nations to justify the dismantling of sovereign governments. But sometimes the excuse isn't just weapons. Sometimes it's foreign policy independence. That's exactly what happened in Pakistan in 2022 when Prime Minister Imran Khan was ousted in a parliamentary vote of no confidence. But the story behind his removal tells us far more than just parliamentary procedure. It reveals the anatomy of a modern regime change operation. Imran Khan, a populist leader with mass public support, increasingly pushed for an independent foreign policy, pursued stronger ties with China, Turkey, Iran, and notably Russia. According to a classified diplomatic cable leaked in Pakistan, later confirmed by Imran Khan, a US official warned Pakistan that all would be forgiven if Khan were removed from office through a no-confidence vote. Within weeks, opposition parties suddenly united, and defections began appearing within Khan's ruling coalition. The media began building a narrative of failure, while the US-friendly establishment grew distant. Ultimately, Imran Khan was removed from power in April 2022, despite no corruption case, no military coup, and no voter mandate against him. Since then, Khan has called it an imported government, installed not by voters, but by external influence using domestic proxies. The point is this: sometimes weapons aren't the only excuse. Strategic non-alignment, economic independence, or simply refusing to follow Washington's lead can trigger regime change, especially in nations seen as strategically important. What most of my viewers cannot forget is the 2003 US-led invasion, which was arguably the most infamous case of this weapon tactic. The Bush administration, backed by the UK and other Western allies, claimed that Saddam Hussein's regime possessed weapons of mass destruction, including chemical and possibly nuclear arms. This claim was the key rationale for selling the war, both to the American public and to the world. Secretary of State Colin Powell stood before the United Nations Security Council, showing satellite images and intercepted communications to support the case for invasion. But after the war began, extensive inspections revealed what many had feared. No weapons of mass destruction were ever found. The intelligence was flawed, or worse, manipulated. The cost? Over 200,000 Iraqi civilian deaths, a fractured nation, the rise of ISIS, and a destabilized Middle East. The 2011 NATO intervention in Libya is yet another example. Western powers claimed that Muammar Gaddafi's regime was using heavy weapons and airstrikes against civilians during the Arab Spring. While repression was real, human rights groups later found that many initial claims were exaggerated or lacked sufficient evidence. What started as a humanitarian intervention quickly turned into a regime change. What most people forget is that in December 2003, Gaddafi agreed to dismantle his country's weapons of mass destruction programs in a landmark deal brokered by the United States and the United Kingdom, with oversight from international bodies like the IAEA and OPCW. Libya surrendered its nascent nuclear program along with its chemical weapon stockpiles and long-range missile systems. The deal came after years of crippling sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and the shock of the US invasion of Iraq, which demonstrated the high cost of defying Western security narratives. In exchange, Libya was removed from the US list of state sponsors of terrorism. Sanctions were lifted in 2004, and Western oil companies re-entered the Libyan market, and the Libyan economy boomed. Gaddafi also sought to position himself as a legitimate global leader, believing his compliance would shield him from future foreign aggression. But still, Gaddafi was brutally killed, and Libya spiraled into civil war, becoming a haven for militias and terrorist groups like ISIS. Once again, the justification of weapons helped dismantle a sovereign state, with devastating consequences. In the end, the global weapons narrative has become a political tool, a shield for aggression, a slogan for regime change. It is a weapon itself, used not against armies but against truth, sovereignty, and international law. As informed citizens and global observers, we must question every justification, every red line, and every claim made in the name of security. Because history teaches us this: the loudest alarms about weapons often drown out the quiet truth, and while governments may fall and new flags may rise, the cost in lives, liberty, and legitimacy is rarely ever justified.